the first thing you notice when you get to Gaza is it's just full of children. I mean, it's a very young territory. I don't know if it's the youngest in the world, but it's a very, very young territory.
Yeah, it was I think 50%
Half of people
under.
are under
Yeah.
18, yeah, and 40% of people in Gaza are under the age of 15. It's a very, very young
Wow.
population. There are kids everywhere. I mean, you cannot walk 3 feet without some little kid just running into your leg and then running onto it, because kids are very, very free in the Arab world. They just kind of run. It's a cultural thing. They just let them run absolutely amok until they get to like 12 years old. But the so and I keep up with the conflict. Like there's a map of Gaza behind me. Like I pay attention to it on a daily basis. Before October 7th, after it's the same, and so I knew about the very large number of children killed, but to actually see on a daily basis children coming in who had been shot in the head and the chest.
Hmm.
I don't know why it just hadn't like occurred to me, but I really was not expecting that. Because you might argue, not you, someone might argue that a bomb went off, we dropped a bomb on Hamas headquarters or something, and a kid just happened to be nearby, so the kid got hurt. Okay, I mean that's very tragic, obviously, but it wouldn't be some sort of dastardly thing. It's just okay, it's a war, right? People get hurt in a war, but that's very different from kids getting shot in the head every day. That is not a mistake. I'm no military expert. I do like to shoot, but I'm not. I certainly am not some kind of expert in military affairs or weaponry or anything like that. But that's not a thing that's going to happen on accident every single day, multiple times a day, in this one small region of Gaza. And then it's beyond that. And I don't know if you saw, we actually, I just, Mark and I and some other people put together a letter um, to the Biden administration that we put out today, um, in which I think it's got 45 signatures in the end. And what we wrote is that every single signatory to this letter repeatedly saw children shot in the head. And they weren't all at my hospital, or it's not my hospital, they weren't all at European Hospital in Khan Yunis. They were at Kamal Adwan, they were at Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital, they were at Nasser Medical Complex, they were at Shifa, I think some people were at Shifa Hospital. They were all over the place. And every single and throughout multiple time periods, because this has been going on for 10 months now. So that is very unusual. And again, and sorry, just to get back to what I was saying, I don't know if I can't remember if they let us keep this in the piece or not, but if it's been pretty widely reported that the number of children killed in Gaza by I think May was more than all children killed in every zone of armed conflict in the past 4 years combined. But even that does not convey what is happening. So, like the most dangerous are. Sorry, I just have to make sure no one's texting me about someone dying. I see, no, there. It's Mark texting me actually. The
Your co-author.
My co-author, yeah, no, he and I've gotten really close. He's an incredible human being. Really, I'm very, very lucky to have met him.
Yeah,
But
I think some people might have encountered, like, gotten to know your piece and what you two have done through an interview that he did that went sort of viral, where he basically made a similar point to the one you just made, that you don't see multiple gunshot wounds, two gunshot wounds to the head or to the chest, by accident from the
yeah,
world's quote unquote best snipers.
yeah, and not over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. That's the kicker of it.
Yeah.
Because again, yeah, if it happened once, okay. I mean, certainly there's some sadist in the Israeli army. That's not surprising, right? But if it happens every day in the catchment area of every hospital in Gaza, that means it's happening everywhere. And it's not, you know, which means the army is at least tolerating it. I mean, these people aren't
Yeah.
idiots. Like they know what's going on.
If not directing it, it is definitionally systemic.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's definitely happening systemically. Whether or not, I don't know if the chief of staff of the Israeli army said, "I want 12 kids shot today." That seems unlikely to me, but it is clearly being tolerated. And furthermore, it's not. I mean, there are famous kids. There are famous cases of children being killed in drone strikes, for example, where that kind of thing has to be approved up the chain of command. That's not something that just some guy decides to push a button and does it. Um, so yeah, it's very scary. And I'm not here to like pass judgment on people. I don't know uh, uh, what's going on, but I do know that this isn't happening by accident. It's happening with our weapons. So that's that's kind of the reason we wrote the political piece and then that letter that I mentioned. But sorry, I just want to finish that point about the kids because
Yeah.
I think it's important to remember that like my own experience may not actually mean anything. Like maybe I just happened to be there and there happened to be two crazy snipers in communists just shooting children dead. But if you look at 2022 or there's the UN the UN Secretary General puts out a report every year in June called Children in Armed Conflict, and it examines the previous year's kids and the situation of children in zones of armed conflict. And in Ukraine, the number it's a little bit less than 750 children who were killed in uh, in 2022. I think it was 738 if I remember right. And that is, just to be clear, that is 738 too many. Like no one would argue
And of
anything otherwise.
course,
That is brutal. That is horrible. And I struggle to picture 738 dead children.
yeah.
Like that's, it's just it's awful. I know it's seen out of something you don't even want to reference. So but so 738 children, if I'm remembering the number right, say it's less than 750 in a country of 38 million people. In Gaza, that number is probably 15,000 right now in a country of or a territory of 2.2 million people. And if you
Yeah.
do the population adjusted, if you divide by the population, in other words, if you standardize the rate of killings per day of children, if you standardize it to the population, it's literally, and I'm not making this up, it is 600 times higher in Gaza than in Ukraine.
Wow.
That's
Jesus.
total. Yeah, exactly. Jesus fucking Christ, that is totally insane. It is. Sorry, I shouldn't swear, but
No, you're fine.
it's off the map. I mean, it's there's nothing to compare this to, like Genghis Khan or something like that. Like, and actually, if you look at the UN, I forget the name of the exact organization. It's in the appendix that we put out to the letter that we put out. But the one of the UN agencies put out an analysis of the first 100 days of this conflict, whatever you want to call it, this phase of the conflict, and they pointed out that the only time, the last time people were killed at this rate was during the genocide of the Tutsis in Rwanda. It was like
Wow.
you have to go back to 1994 to find a time when the percentage population was killed this fast in any place. And that's going by the official numbers, which that's a major point we make in the appendix, is that the official numbers are definitely wrong. People get all upset, say, "Oh, it's a Hamas-run Gaza ministry. How can you believe anything they say?" Well, there's two different academic studies comparing what they say to reality and finding that in fact they undercount. But which isn't surprising. They're just giving you the ID numbers of the Palestinians that ended up in their morgues. It's not some conspiracy. But the
Yeah.
uh, but they're not even attempting to capture deaths from what are called indirect causes, especially malnutrition and in this case infection, because Israel has dramatically concentrated what was already a very concentrated population, and at the same time is starving them. And again, this isn't my assessment. This is Senator Van Hollen. This is Bernie Sanders. This is Human Rights Watch. This is Cindy McCain at the World Food Program. It's the Famine Early Warning System of USAID. It's the integrated food security phase classification. It's literally everyone who has anything to do with figuring out if people are being starved. Like Oxfam, just you keep naming it. You can go
Yeah.
on forever.
How does that, how does the kind of compounded issue of starvation affect what you're doing as a trauma surgeon? I remember there was a moment in the piece where you talk about um, a kid who couldn't lie on his back because of an injury to his buttocks. And when you went to kind of talking about when you pat, a fellow doctor or local doctor on the back or a patient on the back or this child on the back, you are confronted with just the sharpness of their spine protruding and how it's just everywhere. And how one little girl as she was recovering on her personality, started to come back,
Yeah.
was
Curing. Yeah.
making demands for, some
Hmm.
kind of food. And her father was going on these scavenger hunts for
Yeah.
something for her.
Honey
But it
melon.
does
Yeah.
seem like you're simultaneously struggling to keep people. I mean, that has to affect people's recovery.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, no, for sure. I mean, Mark can attest to this. Everybody, almost every surgical incision that we made, in on an emergency basis, meaning like the person just got hurt and we're taking them directly to the operating room. Every single one got infected. I mean, that's totally unusual. It's just way out of bounds. There was a few things to it. Number one is I think probably the most um, important. I think there were probably three most important things causing that. Number one was certainly the malnutrition. No one in Gaza is well nourished right now. I lost 15 pounds while I was there. I'm not a big guy. Like I'm 5'9", I weigh about 180. And I lost 15 pounds in Gaza in 2 weeks. I had 4 kilos of peanuts that I brought with me. I ate all of them, which is not a
Mm.
good idea in just 2 weeks. And yeah, and everybody else lost weight. And this is, too much information, but everybody had diarrhea. Everybody had a cough
Mm.
by the time they left. It's I'll tell you or sorry, but so that's the malnutrition. The second thing is in the humanitarian sector, they talk about WASH. It means water, sanitation, and hygiene. So the WASH sector, WA, an acronym, WASH,
Hmm. Hmm.
and and it's a very clear target of the Israeli attack. Oxfam has put out a good report it's in that appendix. I can't remember. Don't quote me on the numbers, but I think something like 85 to 90% of just basic sanitation facilities have been destroyed in Gaza, and they actually they estimate that there's in the Mawasi area, I don't know if you can see it over here, this little area where they're trying to concentrate the population. There's one toilet for every 4,500 people. This,
I mean, you included photographs in the piece of raw sewage
oh
running
yeah,
down the
yeah,
street. Well, street's a strong word, but running
yeah,
down a
running down the
path.
alley, yeah, the dirt, yeah, yeah,
And of course, there's this relatively new reporting about the incidence of polio.
yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
first of all, how does polio even manifest?
Well,
Am I
yeah.
like I thought we got rid of I thought we defeated polio. Like
Well,
where
yeah.
does it even come from?
Unfortunately not. So polio. I am not an infectious disease expert. Just,
Sure.
just so the poor virologist listening at home doesn't smash their computer in half. But um, uh, I don't know if the polio virus has a reservoir outside of human beings. So I'm honestly not sure. Um, but most viral infections do live somewhere else. Like they exist somewhere else, and they're just not infecting people because people are healthy or they're vaccinated. Now, with like when the I actually I've only read news reports about it. I don't know where the technical data came from that, but uh, when that information came out, some Israeli spokesperson, I don't know who, said it doesn't matter because 95% of Gazans are vaccinated against polio. And that's true, but that would make sense if their immune systems were working, but they're not because they're being starved. So
Mm.
it's an extremely dangerous situation. But just to be clear, it's not just polio. The kids who have been starving to death and dehydrated to death in Gaza have not been dying of polio. They've just been dying of diarrheal disease. They're actually in that letter. There's a nurse practitioner. The letter that we wrote to the administration. There's a nurse practitioner. I think her name was Asma. I've never met her, but she worked at I believe Emirati Hospital, which is a women and children's hospital in Khan Yunis, if I remember right. Um, and she said that day, every day, they saw babies who had been born healthy die, and not they didn't just get born healthy and die right away. They were born healthy. They went home. They went outside, and and they came back dehydrated and dead because their mothers were so malnourished that they couldn't breastfeed. And if you feed them, if you can even find formula, which it's shocking that there's a place in the world that doesn't have access to formula, but if you can even find formula, you have to mix it with poison water. Actually, I'll give you an example. Like we rent the let's see, it was the we arrived on a Monday and we left on a Monday, so it was the second Monday that we were there, like right in the middle of the week or right in the middle of the trip. Um, we ran out of bottled water, and I had one of those Amazon the camping straw things that you can drink contaminated water through. It's got like a filter in the straw.
Sure.
So I just got some tap water and I drank it and I was like, I mean, I'm hoping this is safe, but it is not pleasant to drink. And so just out of curiosity, I just wanted to know. So when you exited the front the main entrance to the hospital, the hospital itself is a DP camp, and when you exited the hospital, you walked out through what used to be a courtyard. Now it's just a tent city, and then you turned right, and there were four toilets on the side. As far as I could tell, those were the only four toilets for the entire for the 10 to 15,000 people on the hospital grounds. But on that side, there were four toilets, and then there was a water spigot, and I'd seen people drinking from it, so I was like, I'm just going to try it. I I don't know what came out of that tap, but it did not. It was clear, but other than that, it bore no resemblance to water. And people actually were like, "What the hell are you doing?" Like, water. Like the Palestinians were trying to stop me from drinking this stuff, and I wasn't guzzling it. I literally just sipped it, but I was like, I couldn't believe it. It had this chemical aura to it. Actually, like as you like lifted it, because I had a cup, as you like lift it to your mouth, your eyes kind of burn a little bit, and I mean, and that's what these
Like in a
people are drinking.
chemical way or in a
Yeah, just
like
I honestly don't know,
poop way?
in a chemical way. No, no, in a
Mm,
chemical way. But yeah, I mean the water in Gaza, and actually again, I keep mentioning reports, but I'm pretty sure it's Oxfam, put out a report. Yeah, it's called Water War Crimes. It just came out a few weeks ago, I think, in which they detail how I again don't quote me on the exact numbers, but I think it was like 90 or 94% of the water that Gaza had access to before October 7th, which was already pretty meager. 90 something percent of that is gone. Now, the water before October 7th wasn't very good, but
right.
and waterborne disease was actually still one of the number one, actually the number one killer of children under 5 in Gaza before October 7th. But now, not only is the water of horrendous quality, I mean, far, far worse than before, but there's barely any of it. They estimated that since October 7th, again, forgive me if I have the exact numbers wrong, that 4.7 liters of water per person per day have been available in Gaza for all things, not for drinking, for all uses. The sphere, there's a thing called the sphere handbook, that it sets how would you say it? It sets acceptable minimums during humanitarian emergencies. The sphere minimum is 20 liters. If or 15, forgive me if I'm wrong. 15 or I think no, it's 15 liters. It's 15 liters per person per day in the middle of a humanitarian emergency, not all the time, obviously. And if and then I think Oxfam estimated that if Israel actually does its plan to move the population to the Mawasi so-called safe area, I think they said that the maximum anybody could expect to have in terms of water would be something like 2.4, 2.7 liters per person per day. These are shocking numbers. That doesn't exist anywhere else. Not in the middle of Afghanistan, not in the middle of the Sahara Desert. I mean, it's just like that is just off the spectrum. There's just no comparison. And this is again one of the reasons that we wanted to be clear that like the death toll in Gaza is very, very, very high. We can't. It's impossible to know what exactly it is. I don't claim to. Neither does anybody else. But
Have you had a chance to take a look at the Lancet analysis, which puts it as high as and maybe exceeding 186,000 people?
yeah, yeah. So the Lancet analysis, it was interesting. It's a funny story. They they wrote the piece, and it's not uh, I shouldn't say this out loud, but it's not a research piece so much as a kind of a review of what does past experience tell us that would probably happen in this case. And
Hmm.
what their point was that indirect deaths from war, meaning not the violence, but like the starvation, the disruption, infection, things like that, uh, are typically, I think the numbers they gave were 4 to 13 times higher than direct deaths. So just by conservative estimate, and then I think they chose a multiplier of 4, and since and that's how they got to the numbers that they got. When they first put that paper out, I read it, and I looked at their source. It was funny. I looked at their source for this 4 to 13 multiplier, and it was some random UN report about drug trafficking, and I was like, "What the hell is this? This doesn't make any sense." And so then I kind of, and it was all over the news, but I was like, whatever, I'm just going to ignore this. But then it kept being in the news. So then I was like, let me look at this paper again, because I mean, people are citing this constantly. But then when I looked at it, I was like, oh, thank God, there was an erratum saying, or erratum, how do you say that? Saying, oh, the story, I think it's footnote number 9 or something. Footnote number 9 was incorrect, and it's this. And I was like, okay, that actually makes a lot more sense. Now I feel much better, because you don't want to be
yeah.
You don't.
If we ever make a mistake, we never live it down, and it's used to invalidate all the truth of what we do is horrible.
That is absolutely true. But at the same time, we shouldn't, and not implying that you do in any way, but we shouldn't be willing to accept nonsense, even though it comports with what we know. You know what I mean? Like if that multiplier was just invented, then we shouldn't pay attention to it. We should look at the other data. There's plenty of other information out there. But so no, I was really glad to see when it got up there. I was like, oh, thank the Lord.
Well, I appreciate your rigor. But and that you're go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. I was just going to say that's actually there are plenty of higher multipliers as well. In the appendix to the letter that we wrote, we quoted one of up to 25 times higher. So but on top of that, even the violent deaths nobody really knows how many people have been killed in Gaza. The Ministry of Health data reports people who have shown up to morgues, which are attached to hospitals, which are under attack, right? So number one, that's difficult. Number two, I'm leaving aside that it hasn't been updated since April 30th, but number two, those people have to be fully identified to be counted in the man, woman, child, elderly categories, because that's just how it makes good sense to do data collection, So and there are plenty of people, like actually maybe a day or 2 days before Mark and I got to European Hospital, there had been an explosion in an open area, not a home. So there were just body parts scattered all over the place. And some guy didn't know what to do, so he just picked them up, put them in the back of a pickup truck, and drove them to the emergency room. And he was like, I'm sure the poor guy was probably just, he probably wasn't thinking. But so this, I'm laughing not because it's funny, but because it's crazy. This truck full of body parts shows up. Well, okay, those people none of them were counted in the dead.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they were just torn to shreds. Who's going to find their ID card? Who's going to identify them? It's absurd.
Hey, YouTube. Thanks for watching. Just a reminder that this is a podcast. You can catch an extra premium episode every Monday for $5 a month at patreon.com/badfaithpodcast. That's patreon.com/badfaithpodcast for $5 a month, an extra episode every week. Additionally, please do consider liking this video, subscribing to this channel. It helps us out. It helps independent media beat the algorithm. We appreciate you. And as always, keep the faith.